We start off outside a rundown house, totally nothing bad going on inside, right guys? We then see a man, kneeling in fear and visibly distressed, pleaded desperately for just one more month, begging for mercy. The menacing figure, wielding a threatening weapon, warned that if he borrowed money, they should repay it regardless of what it took, including selling an organ or two. The threatening figure, holding a weapon and looming over the cornered and fearful man, implied that experiencing pain might help him understand the frustration of not getting his money back. We then see the lady, visibly nervous and worried, anxiously tapped her phone screen as she searched for any way that might reveal a way out of the tense situation. The then notices the woman's weak attempt at trying to hide her phone. The man aggressively yanks a phone, and our fearful and surprised woman reacts in shock. The guy with a smug expression and holding a smartphone mocked the duo loudly, warning him that calling the cops would be useless. As the One Piece character looks at the phone to figure out what she was doing, we then see that the mother was actually texting her son, explaining to him not to come home. How kind. The menacing character, grinning while making a threatening proposal, suggested that instead of causing chaos, they should resolve the situation directly with their son. Just then the duo cries out to the man not to involve their son, desperate to not have him getting hurt. The threatening character, with a menacing grin, commanded others to silence them to prevent any noise from attracting attention. Dirty Thug, displaying a smug and intimidating demeanor, menaced the tied-up figures while asserting that they would not want the family's son to be frightened. He announced that the son was here, as the menacing figure grinned and stepped forward ominously in the corridor. We then see our boy standing outside the door, oblivious to what's happening inside his house. As he enters the door, maybe saying a prayer or two. The mom calls out pleading for them to stop this nonsense. We then see all the goons playing hide and seek, waiting for our boy to find them. As he unpacks and starts taking his shoes off, making himself comfortable, he announces his presence like anyone cares to hear that right about now. One goon then launches a sneaky attack in our guy here, praying to take his head off his shoulders. As the blow connects, our guy recoils from the pressure, and here's where you'd think the manhwa would end. But no, you see our guy is built different. Taking the blow head-on, literally, he grabs the goon by the shoulder as he looks on in shock. The man delivers a little flick to the goon's head for hitting him with a sneak attack. Totally not cool, man. We then see the guy's entire face redacted like he's on the most wanted list from our guy's punch, leaving his leader shocked. He was horrified and staring with wide eyes, reacting in shock as he exclaimed that he could not believe what he was seeing. Surrounded by threatening figures wielding weapons, he yelled desperately for his attackers to get him and end his life, revealing his fearful determination to escape. As one guy tried his luck, which been evident it was gonna work, our guy swiftly dodged and gave him a powerful blow to his liver. If the pain was bad enough, the blow was so powerful it literally broke the guy's whole. He's in for a world of pain. The guy let out a devastating scream, which I think is totally unreasonable. He should accept his consequence like a good boy. Then if that was worse, after seeing his pal get obliterated, this guy really thought he could take our boy on trying to sneak a dragon kick in. Of course, our guy catches his leg with ease and lets him off with a warning by just simply breaking his leg. Now I know he's gonna rethink ever kicking someone again. Now I am starting to see in pattern. Every single one of these guys has no and loves to sneak attack our boy. But just somehow, the goon actually manages to connect the blow, which looks life-threatening. But our guy just looks back and says with a stern tone, "Tell God I said hi for me." Before we see the guy forcefully ejected from out of nowhere, shouting in shock. Boss, clearly frightened and overwhelmed by the sudden violence, shouted in confusion as he reacted to the chaos unfolding around him. Boss, holding a knife with a threatening expression, declared that they would see how tough the protagonist was when his father was about to die. Without warning, our guy tells the boss to shut up, and he catched an iron straight to the face. To make matters worse, on top of catching the iron to the face, the protagonist puts this guy's entire head through the door, demanding he leave their house. Gasping and bloodied, the leader, appearing terrified and desperate, called for help, urgently requesting someone to dial 911 as he struggled with his injury in the wall. As the man stays stuck in the wall, he cries out, wondering if anyone is there. As our boy goes to untie his parents, saving the day. While untying his parents, the protagonist starts saying that even his parents didn't want him to fight. They should have been such broke fucks to begin with, relying on loan sharks for money, saying this was all their fault. Just then, after delivering that harsh truth, our boy passes out from the blows to his head. Man, he was doing good up until this point. We then transition to outside the hospital, where our boy is staying at. In a chaotic hospital scene, the injured thugs, overwhelmed with panic, was desperately screaming for help, calling out for a doctor to assist them. We then see a suited man standing at the check-in counter, witnessing all the chaos. Hearing about a young boy who had taken down 10 loan sharks for beating up his father, the man looked perplexed as he reacted to the surprising and chaotic event. The nurse stated that the perpetrator was just a high schooler who beat the living shit out of them. Hearing this shocked the guy, as he thought how that was even possible. Hey, me too, man. The man issued a deadly order to find and kill the kid immediately, revealing that the target had also been brought to the hospital, all while the tense confrontation intensified. He noted that he had sent Big Bear after the kid, confidently claiming that the boy was essentially doomed. Hearing the name Big Bear sent shivers down this guy's spine. He urgently asked the nurse which room the kid was in, and she quickly responded that he was in room 202. He observed the Big Bear from this region, recognizing him as one of the main contenders, and wondered if he might be fortunate enough to determine whether he was a worthy opponent. Feeling empathetic, he reflected that he also felt a little bad for the unlucky kid caught in all this, as he looked at the patient nameplate with concern. We then see our boy and this tall bastard having an old-fashioned cowboy standoff. He stood his ground in the stark hospital room, feeling the weight of the towering figure's angry words that he had only been called here to be beaten up like a kid. The intimidating figure, speaking down to the protagonist, explained that the situation was purely business and that he had no personal vendetta, emphasizing that a job was a job. He was being scrutinized by the larger figure, who remarked that the protagonist was an interesting little fellow, implying a mix of curiosity and intimidation. The man grinned menacingly, showcasing their sharp teeth and red eyes, and taunted the protagonist that he had seen him, but was not even the tiniest bit scared. Our guy, without saying anything, just ripped the out of his arm, ready for a fight. He declared that he would show the protagonist what fear truly was, as he raised his intimidating arm in a threatening gesture. But just then the protagonist, fierce and determined, delivered a powerful punch toward his opponent, his focus unwavering amidst the intense confrontation. Watching outside, reacting to the rapid movement, he exclaimed that the protagonist was incredibly fast, his surprised expression reflecting his shock at the sudden speed. But our guy got swatted like a fly straight into the ground, not gonna like he lost a bit of aura there. We then see our guy thinking to himself how he got himself into this shit, wanting to just stay in the bed. The guy was stunned by the overwhelming defeat, realizing that our guy had simply been utterly destroyed in that moment. We see the powerful figure warned him that being fearless would lead nowhere good, emphasizing that he would have to hit back if provoked. The intimidating figure, smirking confidently, mocked our guy's attempt to rise, questioning whether he was back up and asserting dominance in the tense confrontation. The protagonist, confident and smug, dismissed his foolish opponent's threats by saying that their punches were nothing, mocking the opponent's strength. After hearing that, his ego was bruised by the protagonist's words, catching him off guard. Man, with a menacing grin, charged forward confidently, taunting the protagonist that he would find more entertainment in killing him as he kept running his mouth. Just then the man outside was alarmed and rushing to stop the imminent threat, desperately fearing that the big guy might be about to kill the kid. As the big guy rushed at our boy hoping to grab him, our guy quickly dodged the grapple. The protagonist delivered a spinning roundhouse kick to the guy's noggin. This caused the big idiot to lose balance and blackout for a split second. The man outside was astonished and unable to believe that no one had ever managed to knock Big Bear down before, expressing his shock at this unexpected event. He expressed doubt that Big Bear would go down easily, citing his exceptional physique as a reason he believed the fight was still ongoing. The man, furious and determined, confronted the protagonist who mocked our boy by shouting that he couldn't be knocked out by a high schooler's kick, clearly underestimating his resolve. The protagonist, fierce and confident, delivered a decisive, powerful punch to his opponent's face, causing a dramatic and intense impact. This peeping Tom, still watching on the sidelines, could believe this ass-whooping he was seeing. The protagonist, determined and fierce, delivered a devastating punch to his opponent, landing a critical blow in the midst of the intense fight. We then get an X-ray view into this guy's skull, as it's begging from our guy to halt his godly punches. Just then, as we think the opponent is down for the count, he wraps his arms around our guy for a friendly bear hug. The injured but determined bear, struggling against the protagonist, was shocked that he had to resort to using his finishing move on a high schooler, expressing his disbelief aloud. Realizing the man's intent, Four Eyes understood that he was attempting to execute his signature move, the Bone Shatterer, and felt a surge of urgency to stop him before it was too late. Exultant, the maniac shouted in victory over our guy, asserting that this was the consequence of his relentless effort. Just then, finally rushing in after witnessing the ongoing battle, he finally urged the big bear to stop what he was doing. The man delivered a powerful grapple move with fierce determination, causing a visible impact that underscored his decisive effort to turn the tide of the intense battle. Meanwhile, this guy just sat there looking shocked as he halted his steps. The big man was overwhelmed with confusion and doubt, realizing that despite having used all his power, something felt off and impossible. The man, confronting our boy, demanded why he was still moving and questioned how his bones remained intact. Big Ogre, determined and defiant, declared that he would crush the protagonist to bits this time, unleashing his fierce resolve in the intense battle. The protagonist struggling fiercely against his large, muscular restrainer, as he shouted in frustration that he could not crush him. Our boy then struck the huge beast with a skull-crushing attack, denting his frontal lobe. Despite enduring a powerful strike that dented his skull, he grimaced in pain, convinced that the protagonist's skull must be made of steel to withstand such force. The authoritative figure in a suit urgently ordered our boy to stop, emphasizing that the unconscious man on the ground was already defeated and instructing him to freeze. The protagonist was desperately struggling to break free as spectacles forcefully restrained him, shouting that he needed to calm down. He warned that if the protagonist made a bigger mess, it would be harder for him to clean it up, as he examined the scene with concern. We then see the man on the phone as he urgently informed that there was a patient in room 202 with a head injury from a car accident and requested immediate attention. The protagonist, leaning forward with an intense expression, demanded the identity of the unknown individual and questioned whether he was on the same side as the other, revealing a confrontational mood. The man then stated and made it clear he was with the big oaf lying down on the floor, but he then declared that he would like to be on the protagonist's side, teaming up with him. The protagonist, visibly agitated and confrontational, demanded clarification, clearly frustrated by the situation. Just then, we see the Ghostbusters arriving to save the day. The protagonist observed as the masked individual confirmed the patient's status and assured that they would handle the situation. The man asked if it was possible to keep Big Bear unconscious for the time being, and the response was that they would start working on it. Startled and fearful, the protagonist questioned the strangers about their identity, clearly feeling threatened by their sudden appearance. The protagonist, feeling threatened by their sudden appearance, listened intently as the confident man made a persuasive proposal, suggesting that if he worked for his boss, the protagonist would be able to get what he wanted. Looking at the proposal to become a slave with a skeptical look, the man challenged our guy to fight for him, while he listened attentively and was intrigued by the urgent demand. Furious, the protagonist angrily crumpled a red card in his fist as he defiantly shouted for the adversary to get lost. He rejected the challenge with a determined voice, declaring that he was not interested in fighting for money, as he dropped the card into the trash. Feeling frustrated and angry, he stomped away in defiance, muttering that it was a load of bullshit as he left the scene behind. As the man stood in contemplation, believing that our guy's current thoughts would inevitably change, "I do like how that sounds, guys." We transitioned to our boy, splashing his face with water in the sink. He expressed that despite his life being a mess, he deeply wished to honor his promise to his mother never to become a thug, revealing his inner turmoil and regret. Startled and defensive, the protagonist reacted in surprise as his dad demanded to know what he was doing there with an aggressive tone. Dad, with a concerned expression, questioned the protagonist about their intentions to go somewhere in that condition, clearly worried about their well-being. The protagonist, appearing frustrated and confrontational, asked angrily whose fault it was that he was in his current condition. The protagonist, still angry and demanding, accused his dad of lying about being a boxing champion and claimed that he had said there were teams interested in him, questioning why they were now drowning in debt. He confronted his dad with frustration, questioning why he hadn't taken action or opened a neighborhood boxing gym, and expressed doubt about what caused him to be kicked off the national team. He demanded whether his pride was more important than his wife, his voice thick with frustration and intense emotion. As his dad was leaving the hospital with a worried and determined look, and he warned our guy not to leave, expressing his anxiety through his urgent words. As his dad left, the loser's son thought to himself on how much he hated his dad. Just then he gets punished for his words, and suddenly head trauma. He sat on the floor, clutching his head in discomfort and wondering if he had not gotten enough sleep, clearly feeling exhausted and disoriented. Just then, not admitting to his mistakes, the dumbass then blames his dad for how his head is feeling. "I mean, come on guy, are we serious?" The main character expressed his concern that he could not stand his father always getting hurt just for them to scrape by. He expressed his frustration that he couldn't stand seeing his dad kneeling in front of the bully's parents whenever he got into a fight. Just then we see the protagonist suddenly sat up in bed, appearing alarmed and disoriented by the abrupt awakening. He questioned whether he had blacked out again and wondered why he was in a different ward, holding his head in confusion as he searched for answers. He looked at his phone, still feeling disoriented, and wondered how long he had been unconscious. He was surprised to see a message from his dad appear on his phone, adding to his growing curiosity about what was happening. He was surprised to see a message from his dad appear on his phone, and the message indicated that it was time to reveal everything, asking to meet that night. Startled by the message on his phone, he stared with shock, realizing that his dad had been keeping something from him and wondered what it could be. He looked up from his phone with a tense expression, urgently questioning what had happened to his mother, his mind racing with worry and fear. As he tried calling his mother like a son would, he shouted out in worry, asking his mom if she was okay. The mom, speaking urgently on the phone with a tone of alarm, warned the protagonist not to go home because the thugs were still waiting for them. Concerned but determined, his mom instructed him to stay at the hospital, where she had moved him to a different room under a fake name for safety, and he asked about her whereabouts and plans for staying safe. His mom reassured him that she was at a self-service motel near a police station, so he wouldn't need to worry about Het, then abruptly ended the call. She spoke into his phone with concern, warning him not to leave the hospital for now and to stay safe. After hearing all this, our guy just stood there shitting his pants, not knowing what to do. The protagonist, with a pained expression and filled with regret, thought that the entire situation was his fault and lamented that if only he had not fought back. The protagonist, anxious and determined, hurried down the hallway, clutching his phone tightly as he thought that he needed to go find his mom. Just then, while running, he gets a call from his dad, which leaves him confused and hoping his dad could do something. Answering the phone with a serious expression, the protagonist heard someone asking if he was the son of his dad, reflecting his curiosity and attentiveness as he engaged in the conversation. That he was the son, our guy asked, who was on the other end of the phone, curiosity taking over him. He exclaimed that it was an emergency, revealing that his dad had fallen off the building and was unconscious, leaving him terrified and frantic on the phone. We then see his dad's splattered body and broken limbs. As a result of the fall, I do know, guys, something smells fishy to me. We then see his dad, wrapped up like a mummy from head to toe, as our guy just stands there silently. We then see the doctor explain that the surgery was highly complicated and would cost over 100 million won, requiring his dad to undergo several years of rehabilitation afterward, emphasizing the immense financial and physical toll involved. The protagonist, overwhelmed and distressed, clutches his head in despair as he desperately questions what he is supposed to do next. He sat on the floor, feeling overwhelmed and anxious, and wondered aloud how he was supposed to come up with that kind of money. Suddenly, the protagonist is visibly shocked, holding his head with both hands as he experiences a sudden and overwhelming revelation. He exclaimed that it was the business card, hoping to get his hands on that card again to earn by selling his body and fighting. Leaving his dad behind without caring, he sprinted full speed back to that hospital room, exclaiming he needed to get that card. The scene shifts to him bursting the door down as we see the trash can waiting for his arrival. On his hands and knees, our guy bent over, rushing to that trash can, hoping it's still there. But nope, the janitor's already cleaned the trash out as he says that the card is gone. Overwhelmed with guilt and despair, the protagonist, hunched over beside a trash can, cried out that it was all his fault. The protagonist cried out that it was all his fault, expressing a deep sense of uselessness and remorse. Just then, the protagonist says he doesn't deserve to live and asks God to take him. Suddenly, a man held up a red card and asked if it was being looked for, causing the main character to react in surprise. The man, standing confidently and holding a red card, asked whether the main character had changed their mind. Guys, I do know about you, but this timing seems a little sus. Feeling desperate and hopeful, the protagonist anxiously asked how much he could earn if he worked with the other person. The enigmatic figure then revealed that if the protagonist won, he would earn at least 10 billion won, leaving the shocked protagonist overwhelmed and stunned on the ground. He explained that being popular meant you wouldn't even need to win the tournament to become wealthy, prompting the protagonist to consider the immense benefits of fame and influence. We then transition to inside the man's office, where we see our protagonist sitting down. He carefully examined the contract presented to him, acknowledging the instructions to take his time before signing. Looking at the contract, our boy the nerd what the ward was, feeling clueless. He revealed that it was a secret fighting tournament where fighters use special drugs supplied by the hospital to acquire monstrous physical abilities, intensifying the suspense surrounding the dark truth. The protagonist, appearing inquisitive and assertive, firmly the suggestion by stating that he did not do drugs, reflecting his defiant stance in the tense situation. The man then presented our guy was a starter kit with assorted colors and flavors, leaving him questionable. Guy explained that these weren't ordinary drugs and that, depending on the type, they could even grant a dying old man monstrous strength, as he held the small red vial. He observed the confident figure gesturing towards the vials, noting that doping was not mandatory, but subtly suggesting its potential benefits. The protagonist leaned forward with intense determination, demanding to know the true identity of the person instead of the lousy vials. He introduced himself with an apology for the late, greeting as Spectacle Four Eyes, the poised headhunter representing a VIP in the fighting ward, pointing at his glasses. Man, curious yet cautious, questioned whether he would take the drugs and emphasized that, regardless of his identity as a headhunter, the urgent matter was his decision about the drugs. He confidently proclaimed that no one had ever won a fight without doping, delivering the statement with a smug sense of certainty. Despite the tense atmosphere, our guy firmly rejected the offer, stating that he was still not interested, and the man stated that he could share more about it once they reached the arena. The protagonist, clearly frustrated and assertive, demanded that the other person listen to him, as the man insisted he needed to start by explaining how they would be working together. The man explained that once he entered the tournament, he would be able to choose a sponsor if he managed to reach the top 20. He was persuaded by the confident man's bold proposal, who insisted that the protagonist should select his VIP as a sponsor and work together until victory was achieved. He leaned forward assertively and demanded the money up front, emphasizing his determination to secure the payment before proceeding. Our guy was seated at the table, visibly shocked by the revelation that he would only get paid through the tournament, which he found impossible and surprising. He questioned the other's proposal with intense frustration, exclaiming that he couldn't believe they would work together under such circumstances. He urged the protagonist to stay calm, reminding him that he still needed the money for his father's surgery and a safe place to stay. The protagonist, appearing shocked and leaning forward with urgency, questioned how the other person could possibly know that information. He listened carefully as the man assured him that they would provide appropriate accommodations and cover the costs of his father's surgery and treatment, as long as he continued fighting for their boss. He assured that they would also protect him from the loan sharks, speaking with a confident and reassuring tone that reflected his determination. Our boy stated how he was supposed to believe everything that was too good to be true, just before his phone started ringing. We then see the caller is his mom as he questions, why would she be calling at such a time? Answering the phone, he urgently and nervously asked his mom what was going on, stammering on his words. His mom was visibly distressed as she questioned why the protagonist, who had paid for his father's surgery, was now surrounded by bodyguards claiming to be there because of him, heightening the tense and anxious atmosphere. The man then reassured our boy that the safe house was ready and didn't need to worry about his mom, alleviating his worries amidst the urgent situation. Four Eyes, speaking seriously from his chair with concern, explained that they had very few options left, just like the protagonist on the phone. He reported to his mom, informing her that he had hired bodyguards and would be there soon, instructing to follow their guidance. As his mom calls out he ensures her that he will call her back later, hanging up the phone. The protagonist, with an intense and concerned expression, questioned what was at stake for the enormous prize of 10 billion won, reflecting his curiosity about the high stakes involved. Our protagonist, who was shocked and intrigued, reacted to the confident and assertive announcement that 10 billion won was just the base prize. He listened intently as the confident man explained that the amount wagered could lead to even greater earnings, revealing that some champions had earned over 15 billion won. Our guy, standing up, exclaimed that what he just stated was merely impossible, but the suited man quickly assured him that it was. He adjusted his glasses with a serious expression, contemplating that the risks faced by the fighters, the money won might not be sufficient given the dangerous stakes involved. He emphasized that most participants were either killed or disabled during the tournament, highlighting the extreme danger involved. He reflected on the grim statistics, noting that only 10% of participants managed to walk away unscathed in the previous tournament, which underscored the deadly odds they faced. The protagonist questioned how the tournament could remain a secret when so many participants had died during it, expressing his shock and confusion about the situation. The man insisted that the tournament's secrecy could only mean that all its participants had been killed. He observed the man gesturing toward the contract on the table and noted that signing it would first require creating an alibi for his death, highlighting the ominous nature of the situation. Hearing this shocked our guy as he stammered out loud that they would fake his death, questioning what the hell he had just gotten himself into. The man maniacally shouted that the hospital hosts the tournaments specifically designed to easily fabricate deaths. He explained that to create an alibi, one needed to be caught on camera, make a purchase with a credit card, or do something to establish their presence, emphasizing that they could then fake any scenario from disappearance to death through deception. The protagonist, expressing defiance and determination, boldly questioned what would happen if he were to report all of this to the police. He asserted that fabricating evidence to make him appear as a drug addict or mentally unstable would be easy and questioned whether anyone would believe a high schooler without proof. Despite his shock and disbelief, the protagonist was met with the smug and threatening words of the confident guy, who declared that the protagonist would be considered dead before he even had a chance to report the situation. He confidently remarked that having a hospital host the tournaments was an advantage. After dropping all of that information on our guy like a dumpster, he exclaimed lastly that the decision was up to him. Man, determined, asked if the protagonist was still willing to sign the contract, emphasizing the tense atmosphere as he presented it confidently. Hanging his head low, he assumed that our guy would need a few days to think about it, just before we hear a scritching. Slamming his hand down, after signing the contract, he declared that the man keep his words or else. Just then the guy smirked menacingly with a sinister expression, conveying his malicious intent without uttering a word. Without warning, our guy gets a needle pricked in his neck, obviously not seeing it coming. The protagonist, desperate and confused, was struggling against the nurse's restraint while she shouted at him to stop, clearly alarmed by his frantic attempt to escape. Faint figure, speaking ominously while clasping his hands together, assured the protagonist not to worry, explaining that they were merely sedating him to transport him to the arena. We then see our guy slowly opening his eyes, wondering to himself what was going on and if he was dead. Protagonist, looking up in confusion at the mysterious figure looming over him, questioned where they were taking him, his mind filled with anxiety and uncertainty. He lay on a medical bed, looking around with confusion as he questioned his surroundings, uncertain of where he was. The masked figure, standing confidently, ominously declared that the protagonist would soon discover his location, heightening his fear and confusion. The guy then glared down at the protagonist and told our guy to buckle up and welcomed him to hell. We then cut to two people inside a very empty office room. The man sitting down to the other that he understood that the protagonist took down Big Bear, but he hesitantly asked the man if he really wanted to recruit our boy as their main fighter. Despite his apprehension and concern, the man flinched as the character with glasses warned that his brother, the vice president, might end up mocking them for this decision. The man, now angry, questioned why would he recruit the high schooler if he knew that was going to happen. Realizing the need to appear weak to lure his brother into the bet, he contemplated that the less formidable they seemed, the more likely he would join in. He sat thoughtfully, questioning whether the kid was truly the key to defeating his brother, revealing his skeptical doubts about the plan. The man then that he checked our boy's body from head to toe inside and out after he survived Big Bear's ultimate bone shatterer move. With a very twisted face, he exclaimed that what he found out about the protagonist's body was extraordinary. Feeling curious, the man to know what the guy had discovered about our boy. We then cut back to our boy, bewildered by the sudden shock and desperate to understand what was happening around him, unaware of the size 13 shoe coming down on him. The protagonist recoiled in shock as the foot suddenly approached, causing him to cry out in fear and instinctively retreat from the unexpected threat. Just then, the guard pointed his 15 with an extended mag American at the goon and ordered him to stand back. Throwing his hands in the hair, the skinny man asserted that he was only joking, telling them to take a chill pill. He looked up at the hovering drone with curiosity and caution, wondering aloud what that strange device was. He was kneeling in the unfamiliar school uniform, looking bewildered and questioning his surroundings, unsure of where he was or what had happened to him. He was stunned as the drone declared that the first round of matchups would begin, adding to his sense of confusion and surprise. Protagonist, standing in the tense main battle arena and assessing the situation with curiosity, as the drone explained the first round served as a qualifier to determine which of the 200 fighters would be allowed into the main event. Protagonist continued to observe the display case, the drone continuing that this was a drug test round where each player would receive a random drug designed to enhance a specific physical ability. The drone stated that they would now open the betting table for the watching on some type of Squid Game shit. The drone then confirms that the two could now administrate the drug from the case. Protagonist, holding a syringe with a troubled expression and reflecting on his choices, thought about how he had already broken his promise to stay out of trouble and graduate high school, and now felt the urgent need to keep his promise to stay drug-free. The protagonist, startled and fearful, as someone shouted in pain as he reacted to the shocking scene. We then see the stick man guy now bulking and gaining muscle every second. With a devilish grin, he laughed in stating that he was happy to get the power drug. Looking at the guy wide-eyed, our guy wondered to himself, what the hell is up with this guy? Without warning, this guy delivered a flying drop kick to the protagonist's face. As he quickly dodges, we then see the impact as he shatters the concrete wall behind him. He was desperately crawling on the ground, terrified and trying to evade the falling debris, while he shouted in panic that the creature was a monster. Noticing a dramatic transformation in the other character's physique, the protagonist was astonished and questioned whether the drug had enhanced his muscles or something similar. Celebrating his success, the drone declared that he had successfully enhanced his power, exclaiming with joy that he knew it and that luck was once again on his side. Despite his fury, he lamented that he couldn't leave the current situation right now, but was determined to teach everyone who called him a twig a lesson they would never forget. With a big ear-to-ear grin, he questioned on how he should kill our boy. Before a 1-inch punch from the protagonist shutting his trap. Fueled by fury, he challenged our guy with a fierce question, accusing him of playing games and implying that he thought he was superior. The protagonist remained focused and analytical. He assessed that the guy's reaction speed was still unchanged, confirming his initial impression of the rival's consistent agility. He was determined to close the gap and find the right moment to strike, rushing forward with unwavering resolve. Just before this guy comes rushing at us like queso when he hears the microwave ding. He delivered a decisive hit with fierce determination, sealing his dominance in the intense fight scene. Despite his injuries and mounting frustration, he continued to struggle against the monstrous opponent, aware that he had to land a hit on its face to turn the tide. As our boy tried to do a spinning kick to catch him off guard, the guy uses a linebacker thrust like he's on a football field. As the protagonist the attack, he momentarily forgets where he is, as the attack scrambles his brain like eggs. He confidently declared that he didn't need to watch the protagonist's moves to fight, asserting he could overpower him with his strength as he lifted our guy above his head with a smug expression. The guy, fierce and determined, executed a powerful slam on the protagonist, causing the ground to shatter in an intense display of strength. The protagonist, injured and desperate, was collapsed on the ground, coughing up blood and struggling to breathe. The guy, now smiling like the statue off Solo Leveling, lamented that crushing our boy was the best. He declared that he would see how many pieces he could crush the protagonist into as he crouched, preparing to launch a powerful and aggressive attack with fierce confidence. Jumping into the air, the man declared that he was the strongest now. Fueled by his fury, he declared that he would knock out all of his opponents right off their high horses. The man delivered a powerful kick, landing a decisive blow that shattered debris and emphasized the intensity of his fierce attack. He confidently taunted his opponent, claiming that if they were going to crush something, there was always the best target, while smiling menacingly. We then transitioned back to the office mid-fight, as the standing man remarked that the protagonist was 10 times stronger than an average human, leaving the other guy shocked. The man with an unsettling smile revealed that, in terms of bone density, the protagonist was not human and was out of this world, heightening the ominous tension. Resuming the fight, we see our boy magically still alive, as he grabs a hold of the guy's leg. Seeing as he was still moving, this shocks the idiot. Our guy delivered a powerful kick with fierce intensity, while the blondie just barely managed to dodge. The protagonist, filled with fury and determination, is fiercely reaching out with a dramatic expression as he launches an intense attack against an unseen force or object. He was visibly shocked and sweating as he realized that the protagonist had survived without doping, concluding that his own unfamiliar strength must be the reason for his disbelief. Noticing the monster's slowed pace, the protagonist reflected with determination that it must be because his stamina hadn't been enhanced. He resolved that he might be able to aim for the monster's face if he could avoid getting caught, deciding to throw swift punches rather than powerful blows to maximize his chances. He confidently and smugly declared that he was back for more, charging forward with a taunting expression, ready to continue the fight. Before our boy hit him with a float like a butterfly and sting like a bee jab straight to the face. But watch out, this guy tries going for the famous forbidden ballbuster attack, catching our boy off guard. Dodging though, our guy delivered a powerful punch to his opponent's face with fierce determination, embodying confidence in the intense moment. The protagonist, determined and focused, delivered a powerful punches nonstop at the much larger guy. Feeling confident, the protagonist clenched his fists in determination, ready to execute the crucial move he announced was the big one. Just before the big man manages to grab a hold of our boy, stopping him in his tracks. He smugly revealed that he had been hit on purpose all along, celebrating his successful trick with a triumphant smile. The protagonist, furious and defiant, challenged his captor with a sharp remark, questioning whether they truly believed he hadn't let himself get caught. He then delivered a clever taunt, asking his opponent if they knew why kangaroos tie up their opponent's arms before striking, challenging him with a confident and challenging expression. Before the man could even answer the question, instead Odd telling him the answer our boy showed him by planting his feet 3 feet into his skull. And my God, the attack was so brutal they had to censor it themselves. I'd be surprised if he was still standing. Lying on the ground, the man exclaimed that his brain was working and that he could move a muscle. Desperate and frantic, he lunged forward helplessly, shouting in frustration that his body was not listening to him. He proclaimed with furious determination that there was no way he could lose to someone who hadn't even taken any drugs, displaying an exaggerated expression rage. Just then something catches the guy's attention. Feeling confident, the guy looked at the gun displayed in the case and declared that one shot was not enough to unleash all of his talent. As he grabbed the other shot, preparing to inject it into himself, our boy recognized that the man was attempting to take the drug meant for him, and filled with fury, he rushed forward to stop him. But too late, the guy glowing with red eyes now has 2 powers injected into him now. The protagonist, struggling but resilient, was taken by the powerful impact that launched him backwards, leaving him shocked and battered. The protagonist is shown in the harrowing moment, covered in blood and reeling from trauma, with a look of horror and shock etched on his face as he grapples with the overwhelming aftermath. The man, lifting the protagonist dramatically to demonstrate his strength and defiance, declared that he was not just a thug. With his full strength, the man threw our boy down like a bag of rice as the ground shattered under him. Hitting the drone out of the way, he declared that he was done yet. He, furious and determined, declared that he was tired of always being on the receiving end and was eager to take action. As he gripped our boy and put him into a headlock, he lamented, and how putting someone into a headlock felt. I am starting to assume maybe he was a bully victim and now projecting. The menacing figure tightened his hold on the protagonist, shouting that stubborn rats like him needed to be finished off for good, revealing his violent intent amid the tense struggle.